Fancy meeting you today. Let's talk about the Sur Ron, which I've had for 4 years at this point. Wow. Much wow, so much wow. So this particular Sur Ron was the limited edition R, the Ludicrous R, made by Unicycles. It had a couple of changes to it directly from them. We had the 17-inch wheels on there, the old battery I killed, but it had some neat red pinstriping on it. The aftermarket seat, real nice seat here, Ludicrous R. This one's 3 of 20. And let's see, what else? That's pretty much it. Also has the belt drive, actually, which makes it nice and quiet around town. And this one at the time was billed as being faster and more torque than the original vehicles. However, since that, the new X model has come out, and they're all essentially identical to this, except for it has the normal 19-inch rims on there, and it does not have the belt drive on the rear. So what I would like to talk to you about is between the two bikes that I have, how have they been doing over the years? Especially the first one that I bought, the green one, which we did a review on. I think it's been 4 years by now. It's been a while. Let me know in the comments if that's not right. But when they first came out, I got it, and I know it's been years. On that particular bike, I put about 3,000 miles on it. This bike has about 1,000 miles on it. So I don't ride a whole bunch as far as going out and riding 30 miles every day. However, I use them for commuting often, which is a lot of cycling of the key. It's a lot of on-off. It's a lot of stop and go in regular traffic and stop signs and things like that. So the green bike, it finally started to give up the ghost on us. And this was a couple of months ago, actually. One of my employees was using it to ride to and from work for a while he was getting his vehicle repaired. And it started to just act weird. Like it was kind of like surging sometimes. Sometimes you would go and it wouldn't just go. It would just kind of like hesitate. And then you could cycle the key again and it'd work just fine. So it took us a long time to figure out what was going on. I took off the tilt sensor, I took off the brake sensors, I took off the kickstand sensor last, and we still couldn't figure it out. And the last time that I was messing with it, I actually ended up turning it on. It wouldn't do anything. And then I rolled it forwards just a hair, and then, it did something. So that told me that it was either a hall sensor or the controller that was bad. And what I ended up doing was taking apart the hall sensor assembly on the motor. I made sure that the hall sensors were clocked properly. Once I figured out that there had been no changes to that, I got out a hall sensor tester that I've actually had since the e-bike days, made a little alligator clip adapter for it. I soldered directly to the board so I could get that instead of the old, it would be like a 6-pin Honda style that comes on regular old e-bikes a lot of times. Tested the sensors on there, all the sensors were operational, which led me to believe that it was the controller that was out or it was the throttle. So we actually took the controller off of this bike, switched it to the green bike, and then lo and behold, everything worked just fine. Now, there was a problem though, because that original green bike had the golden motor, the 0001 model or whatever it was, or 0100. When you go to buy an X controller for Unicycles website, it actually says, here's the part number that this doesn't work with. And it turns out that that was what it wouldn't work with. So this actually has a square wave controller. This was a custom controller that was made for Unicycle that was a square wave with 120 amp on the battery. And so I couldn't just buy, the only ones that are available now are the sine wave, the X version 120 amp controllers. So the thought was, do I get a new controller for this and swap this one over to the green bike, or do I find an old controller from somebody online? And I actually did end up finding a controller from somebody online. It's like $100 used, whoever you are. Awesome deal. I really appreciate it. Nobody wants to use those controllers these days. So we got that sucker installed and it is running again. And I actually also sold it to my best friend because you can't ride two bikes at one time. And he has always been such a good help for me keeping all my bikes running that I figured if anybody's going to keep it running long term, it's going to be this guy. So he ended up getting it from me for a deal. And I have started to work on this bike. So we have the taller handlebars that I put on, it's a much more comfortable riding position. This has been talked about on the forums and the Facebook groups, that one of the things that everybody should do is put these risers on. And I must say, it made a huge difference in how well and how comfortable this bike is. The other thing that I would like to do is change out the forks, although I'm only riding on the street. So these forks are just fine, honestly. But long term, I really don't like the white, and I hate to be that guy that is like, oh, these looks aren't great, but I could put a vinyl wrap on the front, I suppose. But I did end up buying a, what, RockShox something. It was an older 27.5 that I got off of Pink Bike, because you can get really good deals on used forks on Pink Bike, because everybody switches out to the newest and the greatest and everything. So I'm not quite sure if I'm going to switch that out or not, but it is on the agenda as something that I could do, because I got the fork sitting there. It's been sitting there for like a year or so. Otherwise, what did I have to fix on this particular bike? I actually had the throttle. It wasn't, I guess, seated is the best way to put it. The throttle cable wasn't seated down here when it goes into this potentiometer. It's got like a potentiometer that wraps around. This is the original style throttle. And so the cable, the housing of the cable came out of its little stop, and it was at a 90-degree bend, and the actual cable itself got really frayed. And I was riding down the street, and the sucker just full wide open got stuck on me. And I had the sound of mind to just turn the key off and coast to a stop, and kind of like, I could feel that it was crunchy up here, and so I kind of worked it back down, and was able to actually limp home at like 5 miles an hour, because that's all I could get before the throttle would start sticking again. And then if it did stick by accident, I'd just turn the key off, kind of work it back. Sometimes I had to reach down here and adjust the little potentiometer. It's just a round potentiometer. But I got a new throttle cable, because this one was really frayed. I just got it from eBay because it was in stock and it was fast to get to me. And it took like 45 minutes to take all these shrouds apart and put it back together. Not a big deal, really. And then the other thing, what was it? There was something on this that, oh man. Well, I killed the battery because I left it plugged in for months and didn't ride it, didn't charge it, and I thought, oh, it'll be fine, because that battery didn't self-discharge. And I guess at some point it decided that, yeah, I was going to self-discharge itself. It went to zero. I mean, zero, like the entire pack was literally 3 volts, and I tried to bring up individual cells. I took the top of the pack off, and I tried to bring up individual cells, and they just wouldn't recover, unfortunately. I mean, I have my power supply, controlled voltage, controlled amp power supply, and they just wouldn't bounce back. So that was unfortunate. That was an expensive mistake, but one that I won't make again. So word to the wise, if you happen to keep your bike plugged in, I highly, highly recommend, there's this little switch in there, and it says in the instruction manual, you want to turn that guy off. It's going to be sitting there for long periods of time, and that way you're not going to have self-discharge into the bike. So let's see if I can get that back. Oh, is it going to be, am I going to be stuck here? No, there we go. We're good. Otherwise, you just unplug your battery cables, and that's actually safer. So just word to the wise on that. Otherwise, this bike has been great. I've been really loving it. It seems like there was one more thing though. I'm gonna forget. We're gonna have to make an update on this, but no, that was it on this bike. Oh yeah. Just like everybody does, I replaced the brakes, at least the front brake on this one. Replaced it with a Magura MT, I believe is what model that is. It's actually a plastic lever, but really stiff injection molded plastic, high glass content, and I've really been pleased with that. It completely changed the brakes on the bike. I still have the stock rotors on there, just threw on the new, pre-bled, everything ready to go Magura system, threw on the lever, and instant braking that was much better than stock. I'm not sure if that's been fixed. Let me know in the comments if you have gotten a more recent bike, if you've gotten an X edition, or the brakes any better, or is it the same kind of spongy stock ones that continuously like to bring in air. Hopefully that's something that they will fix over the long term. If not, it's not really a big upgrade. And even the X version these days, they're $4,100, $4,200, which for this bike is actually still a really good deal in my opinion. You could go out and get yourself a 50cc scooter. If it's going to be a name brand, you're still going to be spending $3,500 to $4,000 for that name brand. And then on top of that, you're going to have to service it a whole lot. And that's one thing that, it's not that bad on scooters. It's better on two strokes because you don't have a lot to go wrong. You don't have to change out your case oil all the time. You basically just have oil in your rear gear assembly. But on four strokes, you got to change your oil quite frequently. You got to readjust the carburetors quite frequently on there. And they're kind of a hassle on the long term. But something like this, short of course, the controller going out or needing to replace the brakes here and there, there's really not a lot to go wrong. And I love that about electric vehicles, along with the ability for me to troubleshoot. And since I'm kind of good at electrics, that is maybe easier for me than it is for you. Let me know what you think about that. Would you rather to have an electric, or would you rather have a gas long term? Like what can you work on? I kind of want to know what everybody's thoughts are these days, because in the past, most people have been more comfy with gas. But these days, maybe more people are getting comfy with electric, and I think that's pretty cool. Mostly for the performance. Don't get me wrong, environmentally, who knows right now? We still got to manufacture them one way or another. We're still zipping around on a 100-pound bike or 5,000-pound vehicle, whatever you want to choose for the day. So I don't think that we can really judge which one's going to be better for the environment. So I choose the electric for the performance, for the ease, for the lack of adjustment that is needed over the long term. And I just love to ride them. There's a lot of fun just zipping around in that quietness when all you hear is the tire noise, maybe a little bit of belt noise. It's just a lot of fun. So I do hope this helped you out to, kind of thinking long term about these bikes. How well do they work long term? And I would say that they are really good. A couple components here and there, but everything is going to have some failures. And me being an early adopter on the green bike, it's kind of to be expected that something like the controller is going to go out in time. So I'm really not too worried about that. And it's only a $100 fix. So for the caliber of bike, 2 thumbs up. Still really loving them, driving them as much as I can, or riding it, I guess, if it's between your legs. Let me know about that. At any rate, I do thank you for tuning in. Have a good day.